What happens if the Edmonton Oilers win the Stanley Cup? The biggest thing that I think would be talked about by media and fans around the NHL is that Canada's Stanley Cup drought would be over. For the first time in 32 years, a Canadian team would have won the Stanley Cup. So that means that fans are going to stop being mean to poor Gary Bettman, right? Because a lot of people blame him as being the reason why Canada has not won a Stanley Cup in so long. Well, you're wrong. The narrative would switch from being Gary Bettman's not going to let a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup to being Gary Bettman's not going to let another Canadian team win the Stanley Cup. Some of y'all will never be happy, and poor Gary just can't catch a break. The next thing if the Oilers won the Cup would be some amazing hockey players would finally get their first rings. Leon Draisaitl would win a Stanley Cup. He's a future Hall of Famer. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would also win a Stanley Cup, and I think that'd be an incredible story. He was there during the Decade of Darkness. It'd be pretty cool to see him go from that to winning a cup in Edmonton. And of course, Connor McDavid would also win a ring. Now, if you've been following this account for a while, especially going back to last year's final, you would know that I think McDavid, at the end of his career, is going to be in the GOAT discussion. I think we're going to have a similar conversation in hockey about McDavid and Gretzky as we do in basketball with Jordan and LeBron. But I think the only thing that will stop people from putting McDavid in those discussions is if he didn't win a Stanley Cup. Now, you can argue about whether that's fair or not, but the reality is people are going to argue that he shouldn't be in those discussions if he doesn't have a ring. The next thing here is that Corey Perry would finally end his Stanley Cup final curse. It's actually an incredible run here that Corey Perry's on. This will be his 5th Stanley Cup final in the last 6 seasons with 4 different teams. But the issue is he's lost the previous 4 finals. And I know that Perry just announced that he'll be back next season, but he's also 40 years old. He doesn't have a whole lot of time left in the NHL. And I don't know if he can retire until he breaks this curse. Losing 5 Stanley Cup finals in 6 seasons would be a tough way to go out. But at least he did win a Stanley Cup with the Anaheim Ducks previously. The next thing that I've got here is that winning the Stanley Cup this year would take away the pain from last year's loss. If the Oilers win the Cup this year, you can look back to last year's final as the learning experience that taught this team what it takes to win. And lastly, I think it'd be an incredible story for Stuart Skinner. Skinner has been the main reason why people have doubted the Oilers this season, but he played fantastic in the final 2 games against Vegas in the second round, and then played lights out against the Stars in the Western Conference Final. If he won the Cup, he would officially put the doubt to rest. But as always, leave a like, drop a follow on the Armchair Athletes, and let me know in the comments what else you think would happen if the Oilers won the Cup.